in a new place. I've been here first time, and many of you. So, well, this is a course which follows two kind of things we did earlier in the name of humanity, here in the name of humanities, here in IIIT. One was, of course, these values course we have been through, and another is the arts course you've been through. And what I'm going to do in this course is very different from the exposure which you have from these two attempts. Well, values is something, it is to do with understanding behavior of people and skills, etc. Or arts is something to do with understanding imagination. And whatever was done in these courses, there is certain exposure you have. Plus, all of you have your own minds. And in humanities, the biggest resource for reflection is your own mind. Unlike sciences and engineering, you're already endued with a great resource, and humanities keeps referring to that always. And one thing which can be said as a sort of very key kind of concept in reflections is the key concept is that of reflectivity. We all are endowed with whatever goes on in our minds and whatever notices we make about society, human behavior, etc., which we do all the time. All the time we do that. And to reflect on that, humanities is a knowledge body which does engage with this reflectivity, to reflect on the type of notices we make about living, life as such. And though there are many disciplines under which this kind of reflection can be bifurcated, like psychology, political science, etc. There are very many disciplines, including arts. But humanities, by and large, sort of is very sensitive to reflectivity, which you may sort of engage in. And for personal behavior and personal life, people do have situations where one is pressed into being reflective. And also, in your imaginary kind of indulgences, there is a call to be reflective about your imagination. But these are first order kind of usage of term reflective. In humanities, it's like one raises reflectivity to the level of concepts. To the level of concepts. The concepts which are involved in understanding our experience, in understanding society, in understanding various phenomena of life. So somehow, humanities is a body of knowledge which deals with conceptual insights into human affairs. And it deals with conceptual insights into human affairs. Concepts are something which are very stable meanings. We use words, etc. in communication. Concepts are those aspects of communication which are very stable and whose meanings are somewhat technical. And one uses these conceptual, these meanings in trying to understand the world, and some of these concepts we inherit from our upbringing, etc. And so humanities becomes reflective about concepts which are involved in day-to-day living. And in that sense, I mean, this kind of engagement in humanities, conceptual criticism, one reflects on what entailments certain concepts may have in a situation. For instance, concepts of human rights, concepts of variety of concepts we deal with, psychological concepts, etc. Which so analysis of these concepts is what humanities deals with. In that sense, it's like very unlike the courses which are given in, say, sciences and engineering, where the concepts are settled. And these concepts are sort of unfurled while the course goes on in sciences, etc. But the situation is very different in the foundations of sciences. In fact, humanities resembles the kind of activity which is done at the foundations of sciences, because there the concepts are open. And people are still groping in the dark. When you get to the edge of knowledge, in engineering as well, when you get to the edge of knowledge, concepts are not so clear. People are groping in the dark and the gray areas knowledge. That's where conceptual criticism happens in sciences. But in most of the teaching situations of sciences, people take the concepts as settled. In humanities, one can't afford that. The conceptual, it's like humanities is a knowledge body which is always open to conceptual uncertainties. And if one uses some concepts to analyze a problem, human problem, there would be sort of reflectivity which would show that these concepts are inadequate. So this kind of analysis, conceptual analysis, is what this course will deal with, because that is what is involved in humanities. I mean, this is like there are no comfort zones, conceptual comfort zones in humanities. That's why you have many opinions in the domain of humanities. And say if you do a science course, a engineering course, concepts are so settled, at least in the mind of instructor and also students, there is a comfort zone. If you get those concepts, you can perform well there in that. Whereas in humanities, there is no such comfort zone. And so it's a very open enterprise of knowledge. So for instance, reflectivity itself is a concept. You say be reflective is itself a concept. What exactly is reflectivity? Self-reflection is not so settled issue. It's not that innocent a thing that when people say be self-reflective, what does it mean, etc. It's not very, there are a lot of ambiguities in it, and there are ways to understand reflectivity by a variety of thinkers. If you really get exposed to it, there is a great deal of reflection on reflectivity in literature. So, in this course, we would try to expose what really, in various phenomena, etc., what really are the concepts which are involved. And we take them for granted. So the concepts, we take them for granted. That has to be opened up. We'll try through this course to really bring this out and bring out the idea of conceptual criticism. Now, very broadly, human affairs is a domain. Human affairs is like is something which is there to be reflected on all through own history, and is there in every nook and corner of life. So one of the attempt in humanities is to, whatever analysis or study one does of human affairs, it should rise above opinions. Opinions are very prevalent everywhere. That's the attempt, not that one can really rise above opinions. It may turn out that there are hidden opinions in many of the proposals of analysis. And conceptual criticism deals with those hidden opinions or ideas. So one has to somehow strive towards the reflectivity on human affairs, strives towards getting away from the domain of opinion, or going deeper than just what is at the tip of tongue of people, what people say about things, and going a little deeper about it. And being sort of, the content itself is so open, humanities, because it deals with life as such. Content is so vast, so open, so many disciplines. And we have a sort of challenging task, what to do in a course of this kind, which is supposed to be introduction to everything in humanities. And here is some sweeps I have indicated, that from creative arts, which is seen as humanities discipline, it's been institutionalized in universities as humanities discipline, to social science, which looks like somewhat like sciences. And it has sweep from real antiquity of life up to even things like what is going to the future. Humanities is very concerned with future. It has a big sweep. I mean, you just have a panoramic thing about the entire globe, all nooks and corners of globe. Whatever is sort of take that as subject matter. Very vast in time and space. The subject matter of humanities is very vast, and also it's very critically involved in prospecting something future, prospecting life of nations, all kind of things, and including what does one do with poverty, what does one do with corruption, all kind of affairs, and what does one do with madness, what does variety of human phenomena which we encounter in life. So, but reflectivity on that can sweep through a large dominion of space and time. Then it also, at some level, sweeps through or has a sort of scope from something which can be called as self-cultivation. That people want to be a better person. And that kind of intelligences to doing a political act, which is like act for the rest of the world, how the world should be, or the human affairs should be, or so that sweep is very big. And already in terms of institutionalization of this knowledge in humanities, there are many departments you find in universities all across the world. Even that is too large, too many disciplines. There are too many disciplines involved in from literature down to philosophies, down to things like history, psychology, etc. There's a large number of disciplines which exist, and so this the subject matter is so vast. What does one do to introduce something like this vast subject matter? So what we are going to do is to actually concentrate on reflectivity and then sort of come up with details of or the conceptual engagements which are found in various disciplines of humanities and various concerns which have such a broad scope in them. One thing which I wanted to bring in this introductory lecture is that there is a big difference between living as such and the engagement we call humanities. There's a big difference between the two. And as I indicated earlier, there is the reflectivity which introduces this difference. So a distinction between living as such and considered reflection on issues of living and this human capacity of reflectivity is something which is the center of indulging in this vast discipline. But that doesn't really, this reflectivity is there in every corner of human activity, including science and technology. So in a way, even science and technology can become a subject matter of humanities. Like you have history of science, you have philosophy of science, you have variety, anthropology of science, lab behaviors, and such things. You can have, even science is a subject matter of humanities in a way. So, what you are going to indulge with is this openness and conceptual uncertainties in handling these openness and conceptual ratioing among concepts, etc. That's what you're going to handle in this course. What we will do is divide the course into two sections. And that course is divided into two parts. The first part is about since being a vast scope, what we are looking at is ideas. In the first part, we would deal with idea as such. What is really idea? Ideas are things which have been there since antiquity, and they have been there all across globe. And we're not dealing with, say, one could focus more on, say, action, human action. We are not doing that in the first part, focusing on ideas. And what kind of ideas are we going to focus on? That is to create that ideas have their own life. Some ideas came up sometimes, they still survive. Something which is the center of indulging in this vast discipline. But that doesn't really, this reflectivity is there in every corner of human activity, including science and technology. So in a way, even science and technology can become a subject matter of humanities. Like you have history of science, you have philosophy of science, you have variety, anthropology of science, lab behaviors, and such things. You can have, even science is a subject matter of humanities in a way. So, what you are going to indulge with is this openness and conceptual uncertainties in handling these openness and conceptual ratioing among concepts, etc. That's what you're going to handle in this course. What we will do is two sections. And that course is to create that ideas have their own life. Some ideas came up sometimes, they still survive. Not only survive, they may be very vital today in our determining our behavior or behavior of polity and society. Some ideas which came up long time back in a very different context are very significant today. There are ideas which are sort of gone out of currency. And and which are no longer even recalled. They are ideas which are in dark, which were very lighted once upon a time in some corner of the earth, some corner of society, but now they are in dark, those ideas. We don't know, say, what kind of ideas did people who lived on the land which IIIT is, even 200 years ago, what kind of ideas they had. What were the ideation intelligence of these people? This place was occupied by, like the nearest village from IIIT is called Nanak Namgoda. It's behind near Vipro, etc. That lake, and on the side of it, that's a place which is occupied by some people who are called Sasi people. Like we can be called as students learning information sciences and computer sciences. They are the people who are called Sasis. They were Banjara people, they were Lambadas. Banjara Hills is named after those people. They no longer can be seen. They can be seen outside gate sometimes. Behind if you go outside gate behind, on the other side, there is a bus stand. Behind them some huts are there, or temporary shelters are there. You can find them there. They used to be there on the other side when times came to HCU, they were taken away just a year back. So there are people, what kind of ideas they indulge in, we don't know. And how do we find what kind of ideas are invigorating people or energizing people? This is a very vast query. There are literatures, there are people living, there are layers of ideas which we have, each of us already endowed with sediments from past of all kinds of ideas. We may use them or not use them, but if pointed out, one can reflect on them. So, one portion of the course is going to deal with issues of ideas. This I chose because, instead of aspects of our life, ideas is what educational structures, higher educational structures especially deal with. And ideas is what people should learn and people should make, and people in Belgium who do modern education. In this, I'm going to also sweep through real antiquity and try to show that certain ideas which came up in antiquity are something very determinately involved in current living. And in the history of ideas, one of the very interesting things is that there are many ideas which can be resurrected, which are gone down, or which are not really playing a very very vocal kind of role today. They can be resurrected. So people indulge in history of ideas, or indulge in the kind of ideational discourse which happened in past, not for just being interested in past, but for doing something for future. And so I'm going to look at describe certain ideas which we are not very familiar with, but which came up and determined our life in a very big way. I believe personally that it's only ideas which determine life, even the ideas born recently or old ideas which determine, which are instituted in our life, which are hardwired into our life eventually. And we are layers and layers of ideas somewhere. And this is a way of looking at, since your focus is on ideas, looking like that. I'm also going to deal with, while looking to ideas, origin of the idea of algorithm in this. I'm going to look at that. What does it take? How did it happen? And certain elements, how were they born, etc. We are also going to look at, since I shall limit the sphere of reflectivity, we'll look into some classical Indian ideas about logic, mathematics, classical Greek ideas about logic, mathematics. Greek world is very pronounced today because in the construction of modern times, that is Renaissance, and which we are all product of, and in the construction of modern science, the Greek thought played a great role. There was a research of Greek thought from 15th to 18th century, 14th to 18th century in Europe, which played a great role. I'm going to characterize, when you look at these ideas, characterize what really is a movement where modernity is born. Modern life is born, which is sort of legislating itself all across the globe among all kind of people. And so I'm going to look at the birth of modernity and what really is the ideational ensemble which constructed that. This is just to give you what does it mean to be indulgent about ideas. And humanities does that, what all the disciplines of humanities do that fairly vigorously. So this is first portion is going to deal with ideas. I'm also in the modern times, that is from 17th century to today. I'm going to also cover certain ideas which you are familiar with, how in their origin they were very different. So I'm going to cover even Newton, Descartes, Leibniz, etc., which some of the ideas which came from them they've been taught, all those ideas. So I'm going to show that how the once ideas which are very settled, like in classical mechanics or etc., how they're very different, and there was the concepts which are there, which are due to Newton, Leibniz, Descartes, etc., which are taught now from school onwards. These concepts had all kind of meanings for human affairs. So I'm going to deal with that because this will show how ideas can have certain kind of pregnancy in them. All ideas are pregnant with things. All ideas are have within them some kind of dispersal, etc. in them. So just to get into the life of idea, it's very important to look at what really Newton thought about man or Leibniz thought about man. And this reflection on human affairs is, I'm going to claim that this was central in formation of the ideas which taught in school about coordinate geometry, about classical mechanics, about integral calculus, etc. And Leibniz is supposed to be father of modern computing in most of the history of computing thing. We're going to look at that. What were the ideas there? So this is to create certain love for ideas. And then I'm going to look at one more thing in this. And this is also close to us because issue is that you have come here to do some computer science. Why the hell should you be subjected to things like this course on humanities or those art course or value course? This is a very live issue with you. And I'm going to look at the opposition, nature of opposition between humanities and sciences. What really is involved in this? What are the ideas which tell us, apart from having opinions, the depth flowing of what really are ideas which are involved in constituting this opposition? and we look into method of science and humanities, look at this supposition. So one rises above the gut level reactivity which people have on things. And this section, one part of the course which deals with ideas, is going to expose you to what really is involved in indulging with ideas and what kind of reflectivity one is involved with. That there are ideas which are not even, which are suppressed, which are in dark, they may have future. There are ideas which we take as something obvious, known, like mechanics, etc. They are not so. And in their origin they were not so, they are not so now also. Then at third level, that what really is behind the intuition that humanities and say computer science are something, that different kind of stuff. And what do we get instead of wasting time on humanities? Why should we do it? There are very concrete reasons for it, extremely concrete reasons for why you intuit like that. We'll indulge with those concrete reasons. And that's another aspect of ideas, that ideas are in tension. They are found there's oppositions in ideas. There are tensions in ideas. So we are looking into life of ideas like a word in communication in various languages has its own life. What does it mean? A word mean? Depending on literature, etc. Similarly, ideas also have like that. This is one portion of this course. The next portion of this course will get into disciplines of humanities. It's like a quick kind of review of variety of disciplines in humanities which are there, like anthropology, history, etc., arts. There are certain concepts, certain even the domain which differentiate these variety of engagement which are these disciplines. For instance, history, when I have a discipline of history, is something widely to do with memory. History has something to do with memory. In a sense, what really is memory? And why does, past continues informing our current life? And why do some people indulge in another past? And it's actually trying to grow something called memory. And we have all kinds of memory. And memory is a very mysterious thing. And it's not just memory, it's not just subject matter which is handled in neuroscience or something like that. It's there in day-to-day life. History is also about what people tell each other. It's about narrative, the gossips, etc. What people tell about each other about what happened in the past. And this reporting, history is about that. So there's some fundamental concepts involved in what can be called a sense of history, or sense of past, which all of us have, which deals with memory, it deals with narrative. Narrative is what people talk to each other, or what people gesture each other, what people communicate with each other, and memory is involved vitally in that. So history is about that. Maybe economics, when you look at exchange, memory is not very significant. It's significant because human beings have memory, but it's not very significant as a center of reflection. When we deal with various disciplines, we'll deal with this. What really is the reflective issues, conceptual issues, which are involved in a prevalent sense of past. idea of evidence. We have contentious senses of history or past. You had something like Ayodhya is coming out of a contentious idea of what was past. And contentious idea was of injustice, etc. Similarly, we have say, theory of arts which deals with imagination, aesthetics, etc. Or other disciplines like theory of culture deals with something like manners. What kind of manners we sort of institute in ourselves. Manners are very subtle things. They are manners of looking. How do you withdraw an eye from a situation? There are manners of that. These are very subtle things, and culture is about that, about behavior. How does one greet at the surface? How does one greet each other? This is a manner. Culture, a study of culture, anthropology, is basically a study of manners. And to be self-aware that there are these manners involved. This self-awareness is what we want to create through this course. So while indulging in, if you look at, say, theories of exchange, which is economics, the second part is going to deal with this. It's about, we take something like money as very trivial. Money is something we should have. That's about all. And money is conceptually a very difficult entity. And it's really so many mysteries are involved in the values which get attached to money. You may have something in your pocket, but it may devalue in spite of any of your action or value, etc. Ownership also is a dicey concept which economics deals with. What does it mean to own something? Even not just what does it mean to own something, what would one own up in terms of responsibilities, etc. Even that is reflected on in economics. So there are a variety of disciplines which humanities would deal with. The second part of the course, we will try to give some basic concepts so that you intuit or you are ready for reflections, considered reflections on these disciplines. Being a one course, which is sweeping through entire expanse of humanities, what we could do is to give just some fundamental concepts and to open up your mind in terms of what issues are involved in these concepts. How does one think about it? How does one think about exchange? How does one think about psyche? And there are a lot of people who have indulged themselves in this. Some of things are sort of in public domain or everybody knows, maybe name of Freud or something, psychology. But there are many thinkers who indulge in this. What really are they indulging in? And what have they come up with? And what are the criticisms of the proposals which they come up with? So just exposure, a kind of sweeping exposure to this kind of reflectivity which is there in society. The second portion deals entirely with that. The first portion is about ideas from antiquity down to today, but I'm going to anchor it on the issues largely related to science, issues which are related to algorithm, issues which are related to familiar things which you have, say Newton, Leibniz, etc., and issues which are related to opposition between science and humanities, and what we look forward to in future in that, This is the first portion where you indulge with ideas. The second portion is about disciplines of humanities. And these disciplines are very many. We will only work at the level of ideas there. Largely because some fundamental concepts will be introduced in that. One of the concern among thinkers, all the great thinkers by default fall in humanities. All thinkers, whether they are science thinkers or any subject, all the thinkers by default fall into the domain of humanities, and they contribute to humanities in some way, because at the foundation of sciences there is a conceptual uncertainty, and the thinkers, even dealing with science, they come up with content which is enlightening for understanding human affairs. So there has always been among the thinkers a question that reflection on human affairs or human life, can there be sort of encompassing theories of that? And it so happens at least from last 4,000 years, there are recordings of such theories. They are fairly known. And this is what we call a historical period for around, say, 500 BC, etc., which is around 3,000 years ago or so. There exist what we can call as rational kind of theories of human affairs. People have consciously reflected and recorded that. So we have from say Greek times, from Indian past, from Chinese past, Egyptian past, etc. There are theoretical kind of products which can be called theories of man, theories of humanities. Such a sort of indulgence is very old. What humanities deals with today is being dealt with from real antiquity. And one can also see that from ancient times we can cognize, or we have good intuition and record of what people were doing nearly 5,000 years ago. Before that is very conjectural, but there are enough sort of stuff to textual stuff, archaeological stuff, etc. There is enough of it to work out something called theories of humanities, or what was the thoughts involved in reflection on human affairs from that time onwards, maybe 3000 BC onwards. You have such things. But they are rational theories, very much like modern theories. From maybe a time which is somebody thinker calls it axial age, that the axis of humanity upturned in that. In China, in India, in Mesopotamia, in Greece, etc. There were a lot of rational activity of reason around 500-700 BC or later, etc. This is where people think that humankind upturned, and there's a thinker who calls it an axial kind of age. Many of these theories can also be seen as creating life, as installing life. And in the sense that civilizations, the well-mannered life which is there, civilizations can be seen as products of these theories. So if you may look into, say, rational theories are like Buddha said something about human affairs, Plato would have said something, Confucius would have said something, and they are elaborate conceptual structures. All these things are very elaborate conceptual structures, and one can see how various subtleties of life, which is like the stalling of civilizations. Civilizations are encompassing all those domains, including manners and things like that. And they are different civilizations, they are different people, they are different manners, they are different sort of thoughts or different ideas which are installed in life among different people. Like I said, that the Sansis who lived here are different from sort of all of us who are living now in this land. And even what we call as civilizations can be seen as products of this thinking. I'll try indicating in the first section certain ideas from which we can actually infer civilizational departures between how is it that what is different in Indian and say Eskimos and the people who living in Southeast Asia. What really is the difference? Or between the Greek thought and Indian thought, is there a difference we can point out which can be seen as involved in or sedimented even in current life? As I said, there are layers and layers of sediment. Our minds are like mountains of ideas. And though we deal with only surface, tip of the iceberg, because that's what the functionality of pressure of functionality of contemporary times. It makes us only look at the surface, but there's a deep layers and layers of ideas in it. When we reflect, they become our resources to reflect. And humanities is really about that reflection. Now, one of the great civilizations a product of idea, can be seen as modernity. Modern times from last 300 years or so, is so forceful. The ideas which came in modern times are so forceful that they made even change in the dress of people. Our dresses are different from, say, what your great-grandparents did, had dresses. It's changing everywhere. So when we say civilization, it means just the elementary manners of living. They get affected by ideas. So Renaissance and Enlightenment is what this phenomena is known as, when modern science is born, etc. This phenomena is very forceful. It even changes the behavior of people. It changes even your dress sense. It changes how you sort of idea of beauty. It changes all kind of things. It changes even the way we exchange with each other, communication as well as goods exchange. It has effect on all that. So ideas can really get volume of life. And one of the big phenomena which we are familiar with is European Renaissance and Enlightenment. Because there is immediacy of this phenomena. It's actually changing our life. It continues to change our life and explains a whole lot of things which are happening today. So we would, one of the big phenomena is birth of modernity. It's not, humanities deals with human phenomena. This is one of the mega phenomena, really mega phenomena which has happened. Other civilizations also were mega phenomena.